Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Unique Genius in 33. I have to say we're a little disappointed, but we understand that things come up. So originally we were going to be talking futuristic with Mayor Joe Brooks of Claiborne, Tennessee. However, as happens in the world of taking care of your community, things happen. And unfortunately, he was not able to be with us last minute. But I have to say that makes me pretty excited because now being able to jump in at the last minute, I've got Shari Strong in here and we're going to be talking about self-assurance. So talk about someone who's ready to just take it on, jump right in. I don't think you could ask for anything better for self-assurance from Miss Shari Strong. So don't get confused. You'll see two Shari Strongs on the screen today, but I am Joe Self here in Lima, Peru. And welcome, Shari. I'm kind of excited that I finally get to talk to you about one of those talents. I think this will be super exciting for the community out there to, hear from the founders of Strong Communities organizations. And we'll have to get Lori on here for one too.
Well, you know what?
So you want,
Mayor Brooks, he was so prepared, and actually out of many of people that we've had join us, he was talking to you this morning. I think he was so excited about being here. And then last minute emergency up and he called, and Mayor Brooks, we look forward to rescheduling you, and we're going to save the talent theme futuristic for you. So, and yes, great idea,
absolutely.
Joe. Let's talk about self-assurance, and I'm anxious to actually hear and talk through that with you. I don't actually, you talk about to everybody else about their strengths, and self-assurance, correct me if I'm wrong, it used to be number 34 out of 34 for females, but in the last Gallup global, what's the word I'm looking for?
The statistics compilation, right?
Yes, thank you. It was actually number 34 for all people worldwide. So that always makes you wonder a little bit, especially if you have one of those talent themes that show up at that bottom of the list. So I'm anxious to talk this through with you. So so thank you for being adaptable, and thank you for asking me to fill in.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think a lot of people are going to want to hear from you. I think it's kind of fun to get you in here. And like I said, hopefully we can get Lori in here at some point too. Yeah. So we're going to be talking about self-assurance today. And just to give everybody a quick glimpse of self-assurance. So people exceptionally talented in the self-assurance theme feel confident in their ability to take risks and manage their own lives. They have an inner compass that gives them certainty in their decisions. That is according to Gallup. So Miss Shari, why don't you go ahead and share your top 5 with us and just tell us a little bit about you for the folks who may not know you so well.
All right, awesome. So my top 5 are strategic, achiever, learner, relator, and then self-assurance. Yes, co-creator of Strong Communities, a partner and COO of Relationship Architects. And we have been partnered in this company now. It'll be 2 years in September of this year. And before that, I owned my own company, doing very much similar leadership training platforms, certification of coaches. And before that, I was a director of sales for a large .com company. So have been training, speaking, and studying why people do what they do. It's really been my passion my entire career. I've always wondered what that, why people do what they do. So when I discovered strengths, it made so much sense, and the statistics behind it helped with that. So that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome. I love it. Well, as you know, the way we do this, we always start with a little celebrate and evaluate for each talent. So today, for self-assurance, what we love to celebrate about self-assurance and what is awesome about you is that you have an internal confidence. You have an ability to provide reassurance when others are in doubt. Your steadiness in rocky situations, and that you are very capable of instilling confidence in others. How does that feel for you, Shari? Does that resonate pretty well?
Yes, and it's interesting because even though it's my number 5 on the list, if you will, it really is my foundation.
Yeah.
It supports my other four. It supports my decisions when I make a strategic plan. It supports my decisions when I'm trying to get things done. It
Right.
supports my decisions on what I'm going to learn, and it really supports my decisions around who I let in my circle and who I don't let in my circle, my
Sure.
relator, right? So it really is a foundation, and I discovered that, really over the past 7 to 8 years, I've really been studying strengths, that even though it might be number 5, it really is my foundation for everything I do.
Yeah. And we talk about the fact that no talent works alone, right? But when you can really hone and identify that one talent or two talents that are really foundation to everything else, right? Like my positivity is at number 10. And I would say that's a pretty strong foundation for me, because for me, there's always solutions and I don't really see problems, right? I mean, I see them, but I don't stay in that world. My positivity is a big driver under everything I do. So still dominant, but underlying. So I love that perspective. All right. So questions we might want to ask ourselves if our self-assurance might be getting a little out of hand, or maybe not in its best form. Ways we can keep that in check is by reflecting and asking ourselves, am I being dismissive of others? Am I being stubborn? Am I being too authoritative? Or am I being impatient with others' insecurities?
Yep. Yep. I have found over the years, it's funny because people will look to me, and it's the hindsight 2020 in all of our learning, right? As we grow up, as we become self-aware, people would come to me because they know I'm confident in myself, and that I do believe that's what made me a great sales manager, is because I could see the potential of somebody and help them take a step or just say something to go into that next client they were scared to. So people will look to me for that, and then at the very same time they get frustrated with me because I tend to push people outside their comfort zone. And so when you're in a place of authority, that's easier to do because, you have that place of, of influence. You might be responsible for their paycheck, so then they're more apt to listen to you. What I find it's more difficult is peers. Well, they are attracted to you for that confidence. They don't necessarily want you to, they still want to work it out on their own terms. So I think I was always good at managing down, but I struggle with peers, and it's probably still true today.
Yeah. And I would say,
people are attracted to me because I come across confidence, and it is around decisions. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean they necessarily want to do what I'm confident in, right? They might have come to me for that, but that doesn't necessarily mean they might have to go do 2 or 3 things before they'll come back to me and say, yeah, let's do that. Or I did something and it worked too. So I've had to learn that for years.
And I would say along the lines, when I've worked with people with self-assurance, even though it's not one of the ones you see frequently, in the dominant, especially in the top 5, it is something that I think where I've seen the biggest conflicts with self-assurance, we'll just kind of jump in there because you mentioned it, is in families, but especially between parents and kids. And so if a parent has self-assurance and a child doesn't, that there can be a lot of pressure from the parent to the child because, it's that self-awareness. If you don't know you have self-assurance and you're just doing that, but even when you start to know it, starting to recognize that your child just may not have that internal confidence that you have. And then sometimes we push because we think, it's so easy. Why can't you just be confident? Why can't you just stand up for yourself, right? And I think that's where I've seen the biggest conflict with it show up, at least in the people I've worked with.
It's interesting you say that. I think I was lucky enough. I feel like I don't know. I had 3 kids that were a year apart, so it's just experience. I had to learn very quickly what didn't work with kids. I think if my kids were spread out a little bit more, that would have been more evident. When we talk about parent-child relationships, as I look back, I was more confident in my abilities than my mom was in abilities. So where I see there was more of a conflict was between my mother and I versus me and my children.
Well, and it can certainly
So
go that way, right? If you have a confident child and you're not confident,
yeah,
you almost want to tamper it down, right?
yes.
Because it looks like
And so then
rebellion.
I felt like you're trying to hold me back, and what are you doing? And so it's interesting you say that.
Yeah. No,
yeah, I was very different.
Well, we'll get into that because we're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to know, what do you love about your self-assurance? How does it serve you and serve others?
I think for me, and the more and more I learn about it, it isn't the decision making, right? Because of my experiences too, right? You add all of that up, but I do naturally think that way, strategically, get it done. What can I learn? Who do I need, right? Then I made a decision. Right. So if I get down to where I've made a decision, I've already went through 4 other processes of thinking. So I'm pretty confident. That doesn't mean it's the only one. Doesn't mean there isn't other ways. And adaptability is like in my top 15, and that's my line there for those of you who understand the full 34 and the dominant themes. But so I'm very adaptable. I've learned to do that too over the See My Learner. I've learned to do that too. So for self-assurance, for me, it is once I made a decision, I'm pretty confident in it. Now, the other thing is it doesn't mean it's always right, but I'm confident that if I made this decision and it was the wrong one, I'm confident enough to know that we can fix it.
Right.
So it's a win-win-win for me. Now, that drives other people nuts. They might have maximizer and want it done right the first time. And I'm like, we just need to get it going and we need to get it started. Right. Then we'll fix it. But, so it's always a combination. But I do know that if I've made a decision, I love the fact that I'm also confident if it's the wrong one. Okay, now instead of sitting on that and dwelling on it, let's just fix it and move on. It doesn't have to be, everything doesn't have to be drama. It's just make a decision. Right.
And because you have your process, right? Like you know how you've gotten there and when you've gotten there. So that being said, what's the downside for you of self-assurance?
Well, people are attracted to me a lot. They'll say, you just seem so confident. People don't find me always approachable.
Okay.
And it's nothing I said or did. It's like this vibe you have, and
that you come across as intimidating, maybe for some people, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, I want my and it kills it, so it rubs my relator wrong because I just want to go hug everybody. And so it drives me nuts because my relator and my self-assurance probably have the most friction. And and that's where it causes self-doubt. Now, I've talked to other people who have had self-assurance high in their talent things, and they lead with it. And they're like, I don't doubt anything. See, for me, my self-assurance is about decision-making. It is not, I have a lot of self-doubt, and it's because it rubs my relator wrong. And I've had to learn that because, and I've just come to life the hard way, if you will. So, so I think for me, the thing I hate most about it or dislike most is how it rubs my relator wrong, how in conflict it really is with each other. And so, and it's hard because I just want to love on everybody.
So I'm kind of curious. This made me think, it made me think of 2 things, but the one I want to bring up right now is something I've talked to another friend of mine about with this. And when you come across as someone who's very confident, very competent, very capable, when you ask for help or when you try to be a little bit vulnerable, people aren't very quick to come to your aid because they're like, oh, but you got this, you can do this. And so we've called it the curse of competence. Do you ever feel like you fall into the trap of the curse of competence or the curse of confidence?
You know what, in the past, maybe earlier in my corporate career, maybe, I think because I value transparency so much with my relator, and I've learned And when I started becoming a speaker, what some of the feedback was, you come across as a know-it-all. So, and I'm like, are you kidding? I don't know anything. Do you guys realize my life story? It's one failure after another. So It's not about knowing it all. It's about, so I think for me, and earlier in my career, to answer your question, yes, but I do think that now I've learned, that's why I use my transparency so much, because I used to hate talking about my story, but now I use that and it balances out that self-assurance. So then people, and it works, right? Because then people are like shocked, and my ultimate goal is to motivate them.
Right.
So then they're like, well, geez, if she can do it, maybe I can too. So I've learned, here's my story to counter, and my, I've learned, there's my number 3. You've done, none of them stand alone, but I've learned to use my story and transparency and my relator to counterbalance my self-assurance, because my ultimate goal is to, I always have to remember my mission and my purpose is to help. I always say my mission in life is to help people do things they never thought they could. And I believe that is my ultimate purpose here on earth. And so to do that without coming across as a know-it-all, I use my story to counterbalance that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think, we talk about vulnerability out there all the time, right? And vulnerability isn't about weakness, but it's about that transparency, that authenticity that you talk about. And I think having self-assurance, obviously your relator helps with that because you want to build those relationships, but that self-assurance, that internal confidence probably allows that vulnerability piece to actually even come a little bit more easily. Would that be right?
You know what? It's so, right? It's so funny because somebody else said that too. And I go, I guess it does take confidence to tell it, because everybody has a story. So I'm always like, tell your story.
Right.
People want to know what you did. People don't care about how much you know and what you read every once in a while, but they want to know how you did it. And people struggle with that. So you're right. So I use my story so that it counterbalances my self-assurance, but it's my self-assurance that allows me to use my story. So it totally is a connection.
Well, chicken and egg situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm less than I thought I was.
Excellent. So you mentioned that, when we talked about the parent thing, you talked about, your mom wanting to maybe control you or pull you in a little bit, rein you in. So what are some of your earliest memories of self-assurance growing up before you even knew what that meant?
Well, it's funny because when you said I always hear this question every week, and I never really thought of it like that. I did it for my top ones, but for self-assurance, I had 5 uncles that were more like my brothers, and because my mom was the oldest and I'm the oldest grandchild, and so they were more like my brothers. And anything they can do, I can do better, right? Like, and I remember basketball out at Grandma's farm, with the hoop on the barn and the dirt, and they're all taller, and I would be like 6 years old, 7 years old, and I was learning to shoot 3-pointers, and I would hang in there, but because I wanted to play, and you can't tell me I can't play. And then we played football, and then we played softball, and then we'd shoot guns, and I can remember it always being, I was never scared to try anything.
Right.
And that's that risk, right? Willing to take risks. One of my mottos used to be, you don't know where the line is until you cross it. And I still not quite as much. The line has moved back a little bit, but it's like a child. You don't know that the oven's hot until you touch it. That was totally me. So I just remember always being that way, and thank God I had my uncles and the family, and my dad. He always did side jobs and did roofing, and I would be up there on top of the roof with him, on angles like this. And that was his part-time job. I'd be up there. I know how to shingle a roof. I know how. Now it really supported my learner as I went back.
Sure.
I wanted to learn everything, and my self-assurance allowed me to do it. And that's that taking that risk. Now, can I tell you a time as I've gotten older that it wasn't so smart? This is just a funny story.
Yeah.
Do we have time?
Oh yeah, we got time.
Okay, so if again, it supports everything else. stuff at one point in my life, and it wasn't just too far back. I sold one of my companies, and it was I went to work for Gallup before I met Lori, and I didn't know what I was going to do when I grew up. And I was at a real, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What did I just do? Moment. And if I don't have a plan, strategic, if I don't have anything to achiever, right? I lean on my learners. So I went back to I signed up to get my master's. Well, still, I'm like, I still don't know what I'm going to do. We were out on a boat with some friends on a pontoon on a lake. And we're, just enjoying the Sunday afternoon. And we come up and they built this new bridge on this lake, for the road above. And we pull up there. There's all these pontoons and all these kids are jumping off this bridge. It's probably like a 30-foot drop. And I'm like, oh, I'm so doing that. My husband's like, no, you're not. You are not doing that. I'm like, oh, yes, I am. See, I didn't have anything else. And I was needing to feed it, right? And look back, I was like, I'm doing it. So I went up there, and this young kid, it was so funny. He never said a word. He looked at me, and I couldn't get my butt up on the ledge. So I'm trying to get up there, and he just looked at me, he goes, he got down, turned around, was like, do it this way. And we're standing up there, and I go, do I go like this? Or do I put my arms down? He goes, most people do this, but some people do their arms down. I go, which one are you doing? He goes, I'm doing my arms down. And they just jumped. I was like, son of a gun, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I landed at an angle, broke my wrist, bruised my tailbone. Had to sit on a donut for almost a year. This was just a few years ago. And so I'm swimming over to the pontoon boat, and my husband's like, I could see his lips going, she's hurt. She's hurt. So I tell people, when it's raw, it's really raw. And that was the dumbest mistake I've ever made at the age I was at. So that risk taking, sometimes I do have to cross the line to figure it out. Now I'm like, oh, Shari, you're not 11 anymore. You have grandchildren. Maybe you should be, So anyway, but that was my self-assurance. And see, it wasn't supporting anything else. And so now I use that as a learning, and that's for any of us, right? If our teams are not being fed in a constructive manner, they will get fed. And the more we can become aware of that, the better we're going to serve the world and ourselves and our family, and we'll still live.
Right. No, I get that. No, and just on the age thing, I just have to say that there are moments when, going to ride a roller coaster or something like that, I'm like, I loved roller coasters. Now I got on a roller coaster. I'm like, I don't know what I'm thinking. I don't know what I'm thinking. In my head, I can still do it. But like, there's a reality outside of that is not entirely my internal thoughts. I
remember the last time I slid into home plate. I was 32 years old, and it was on cinder red, like sand, 32 years old. Slid into home plate and a home run on the last inning of the last play. And I was dating who was my husband now, and I had like blood all over me. I was like, what the heck happened to you? So as I look back in time, now that you asked me this question, I could probably remember every time my self-assurance helped me move into the next stage of life. That was the last time I played soccer. I remember the last time I played volleyball, it was because my leg went out. I was in Mexico. I remember myself, and I should not have been playing with all these guys who were like 6'5". So now that I think about it, I'm going to use this in the future. My self-assurance has, as much as it's helped me, it's also helped me move on in life. You cannot do that anymore.
Nice try. We're moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, because I love this question, and I know you had zero time to think about this, so we may have to do a little brainstorming here, but I want to move to this question real quick, and I want to know, who do you think of as a famous person or a fictional character that you think really represents self-assurance as you understand it?
Ooh, yeah, you're right. I knew this question. I mean, I didn't think about it. Keith, just give me we got a few seconds here. Let me think about this.
And if anyone has another question or something they want to say, please feel free to throw it in the comments too.
Self-assurance, somebody who represents self-assurance as I see it. Man, boy, that's a tough one. Because it's about making decisions for me. So as I think this through, because there's a lot of great business people out there, but I also think, I think of it because of my purpose in life is to help people do things that they never thought they would do. So people who are coming to mind are people like Nelson Mandela.
Okay.
You know, to be, and not because of the inspirational part, but to be in person and to have that confidence of knowing and the decisions he's made. So it was around the decision of, I think of people who go into war zones, right? You've got to be pretty self-assured, either in your purpose, your mission, your job. Those are the type of people I think of when I think of self-assurance, that like I'll say, if I could just do whatever I really wanted to do, I would be somebody who drove into tornadoes and like I just don't want to go to school to learn all the silence. I just want to buy one of those they have the big army like machine or cars and they drive into tornadoes. I think that would be so cool. So those people, and then I think of people, I also said on the opposite end of that, send me to the countries that other people are scared to go to. I'm not scared to die to go do that. Like, let me be a missionary undercover, taking grain or money or Bibles or whatever it is to people that their country don't want them to have it. And I'll do it. Let's do it. So that's what I think of as extreme cases of that they're not scared to walk into the fire. Like I have the fight. It's either fight or fight. I have the fight sense, which isn't always good either, because again, as age, like to this day, my instinct is to turn around and throw a punch if I see something coming, right? So that's what I think of. So sorry if I can't think of another specific person.
No. I think that's great. Well, I don't have time to think. I haven't had time to really think about it much either because we did this pretty quickly. So I know that was throwing you on the spot for what's a tough question for most people when we do that. Do you know a weird character came to mind for me? So fictional character, Tom Sawyer came to mind for me. And I don't know, it's been years since I've read the book, but there's something about his character, and even thinking back to like how he convinces someone else to paint the fence for him. And like, he's always sort of the subconscious for Huck Finn. And there's just this, he's not even the huge character, but he's this person that is always just sort of instilling confidence or bringing something to the floor and is able to use what he knows in a way that works. I'm not always saying it's, in, refined form necessarily, but that's who came to mind as a fictional character.
Well, now it made me think of a scene, Abraham Lincoln, in the movie Abraham Lincoln, when they are at Congress voting on the Emancipation Proclamation. And they had a question for Abe Lincoln, and that kid's running back to him. And Abraham Lincoln actually tells a lie to get it done. And the boy looks and he says, "This isn't true." And he slams his hand down and he goes, "Go do it." He did what he had to do for the betterment, and it takes guts and courage. And he stood up. He believed when nobody else believed. And to me, and he made a decision to go down that road. And that I will often, and I can even remember my sales career manager, and I was put on all of this, but I believed before other people believed in the vision, and I was willing to make those decisions. So it's really those people who have this, when they've made the decision that they know is for the betterment of, they're willing to walk that line alone. And doesn't mean it always feels good, but they're willing to do it, and they do it. That's who I think of.
Right. That's a great one too. I love that. Yay. See how fun this is, even when you have to do it on the spot.
I know, right? That was fun. Okay.
So we have just a couple more minutes left, and I want to end with, what do you love about strengths? What do you wish other people knew?
Oh, you know, strengths, understanding my strengths and when they're just talent and when they're not. And when, when they're raw talent and strength, it has changed how I approach my life in a much more peaceful, calm way. And that we always say it doesn't matter what other people think about you, but we live in a society and everything that we do, it is connected. It's all about other people. We teach that. You've got to be able to connect with other people. But then, they have their own stuff. And I think it allows you to have this quiet confidence, whether you have self-assurance or not.
Right.
And at your age, but I've seen people change their whole life, their marriages. I had a gentleman learn about his strengths and high up, and he emailed me like 2 weeks later. He said, "You saved my marriage," because I could never understand why she wasn't listening to what I was thinking about this one idea they had, and it was actually causing marital problems. When I look at my own children, my son has harmony and communication, and once he learned that, he uses it now where he's at, and he's in a group home. So I wish everybody, and I'm certified in so many things. I've let a lot of them go because they're all great. They all have benefits. But strengths, everybody needs to know how they're instinctively wired and the unique gift that they bring to this world. And it's not just a cliche. Only 1 in 33 million people process things like you do. And that doesn't include your background and your filters and how you grew up and all of that. That's just based on strength. You add all those other things, it's probably more like 1 in 5 billion, So we really are unique. And I think that's what I love about it. It isn't just a cliche, there's science behind it. And so everybody can embrace it, and to watch them go, oh my gosh, I do approach things. They might even not embrace it at first. I had a gentleman that came to one of the workshops and he thought it was great, but it was like 6 months later, he goes, I have to tell you, I've been really thinking about this thing, connectedness, ever since I met you. And now I used to think people were just kind of rude when they stopped listening to me. Now I realize maybe I need to cut the line off. I was like, well, good, I'm glad. He's like, no, I put an idea down. I don't know if this is for you, but it expands and expands. I go, no, I put one down and I'm getting it down to what I need to do to get started. That's how you think. Right. He's like, okay, I just keep learning about it. So I want
right, and it's a constant process. Yeah, it's a constant process. Well, Shari, thank you so much for being on here today and being able to jump in at the last minute and fill the space. And I think it was just a blessing that you could be here. I think this is a great opportunity for those who don't get to see you or talk to you as much as I do, to get to know you a little bit better, and a little bit about the woman behind the curtain and in front of the curtain, wherever you happen to be, depending on what role you're playing.
On Strength Genius Coach, every one of our members who's gone through either a community workshop or one of our cultural transformation workshops with Strength Genius, this is why this is here, and I hope that they invest in these and watch these, and they're helpful, because if it's not that you have this theme, one of your coworkers does, and it'll help you understand why they do what they do.
Right. It helps us take the blinders off to other people's talents, right? When we don't have it, it's especially okay, yeah, I get it. That's great. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I want to thank those of you who are able to join us live, and say hello to all of you who are going to be listening to this later. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please be sure to keep tuning in on Wednesdays at 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern to listen to Your Unique Genius in 33. And again, we've started our new deep dive series on Alexa. So you can just say, Alexa, play me the Strong Communities briefing, and we'll start you right up. Or you can also check it out on strongcommunities.podbean.com. We've just kicked off Activator, having finished Achiever last week. And you'll be getting a week of each talent as we go throughout the rest of the year. So thanks for tuning in, and have a wonderful week. Thanks, Shari.
Thank you, Joe. Bye.